Adobe Illustrator, you'll see that it gives you a couple of different presets of artboard. So the first thing that it's telling you is create an artboard, or basically where are you going to be placing your images in a blank canvas. So it gives you a couple of presets that don't really work for us, because if you the dimensions that I'm telling you to work with is 24 by 36. So let's do that. Let's create a custom artboard. So simply you're going to click on inches. If you go back, it tells you that I'm asking you to create something in 24 by 36. But it also said that it has to be landscape. So make sure this is being highlighted and not this. As you can tell, this moves it. This changes this according to this description. You're going to leave this at 300 just to have the highest resolution. CMYK value is fine. And you're just simply going to click Create. In a couple of less than a second, it's opened. And now you have your artboard. If for some reason your artboard is portrait, you can still change that. If you go here to Properties, and you're going to click here and Edit Artboard. And in Edit Artboard, you have the same landscape and portrait kind of settings that you can manipulate. Another thing that you might be wondering is where is this properties, layers, and all these different things. So these are different settings that we're going to be playing with, different tools that we can have. And there's Illustrator, has some that already shown for you, but it also has, it varies depending on what you want to use. So there's all these different tools, and you have to select which ones you want. So for this assignment, I think these would be good to work with. So a way that if you don't have these, you just simply create window, and this is all the different tools that Adobe has. This is so this is your toolbar. And so you're just simply going to go down the list into kind of creating something that you're going to work for you. Like I said, layer is something that I always for sure will have. And here for this one, I'm using links. I'm using align. And I think that's pretty much, and properties for sure is something that will be really helpful. So most likely you'll have properties already. If not, now you know where to add it. So now once you have that, we're going to start creating our poster. One thing that I want to make a quick reference is that there's going to be three things that you can do. One, in this class, we're going to be focusing on one photograph. So this is your full-scale image. This is where you care about cropping, where you care about exposure. This is this one image being, taking center stage. Just one image at its full scale. But after that, you're going to be creating a poster. So a poster is not just one image. A poster now is a combination of all those photographs that you've taken and combining it into one poster. And why am I saying this? The reason why I'm saying this is because now the poster in itself has design capabilities. What does that mean? That means that now you have to take care about the different things that it's doing. You have to take into consideration the design of the poster. Do these images work well together? What is the spacing between? How many images do I want to include? What is everything that I want to do in this poster? So now it's not just about one image; it's a collective. So a poster is creating a new design. So I want you to sort of think of it like that. It's its own design, and how am I going to create that design? What images do I want to incorporate? The other thing that we're going to be doing is creating a portfolio. A portfolio is a book. And again, the same idea of composition and creating. Do you want to put two images together? Do you want to make it one image? Let's say this is another page of your book, of your portfolio. Do you want it to be over both spreads, both pages? So again, you have to think of that sort of design. So the reason I'm trying to show you this is because for photography, yes, it's about your one image, but then you're going to be moments where you're going to show your work, such as in a portfolio or a poster, and that itself is also its own design, a piece of art. So now I think we've managed to understand a little bit more about what is this poster about. So now let's get to designing our poster. So the first thing you got to do is create some grids. So you're going to go here to View, and it's going to show you, click on Show Grid. There's other ways of how you can create a grid, but for now we're going to stick to this one. The second thing, going back to View, you're going to click Snap to Grid. And this is simply what it's saying is that every time you're near a grid line, it's going to connect it to that. And it's going to be very helpful as we keep working. The other thing that you're going to be doing is you're going to show rulers. You're going to click here, ruler, and you're going to show ruler. And those rulers are simply things that help us understand scale, but also gives us guides. So in the top, you can see now that the rulers have been created. And so this is 24 by 36. It tells you this is 0, this is 24, this is 0, and this is 36. So it also gives you sort of scale or an idea to understand how big you're working with things. So now we have grids and we have rulers. Now we're going to create what we call the border. The border is simply this sort of space around your poster that's going to say, I'm not going to touch that. That's my border. My pictures, my photographs cannot go beyond that. So how do we create this sort of guide? This border, the way we're going to be creating that border is through guides. So you go to the ruler in your top that you just created, and you're going to press on the ruler, and you're going to drag down. As you can tell, it's a little hard to see, but it's creating this sort of dashed line, and that's your guide. It's going to tell you, it's simply going to create an imaginary line. It's not going to be printed, but it's just showing you, it's going to create a reference line, a sort of a guide. So the way we're going to be doing this is I'm going to leave this at 2 boxes. So something that you need to also know is that each of these boxes, if you see box, 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 is about an inch. So each of these boxes is about 1 inch. So, when I say let's leave this guide at 2 inches, what I'm saying is I'm saying 1, 2, and so I'm leaving this at the edge of the second line. So right now I'm zooming in. Hopefully you know how to, you play a little bit with Illustrator, you've managed to be able to zoom in. The way I'm zooming in is I'm pressing Alt, and then I'm using my mouse to scroll in for zoom in and scroll out. So using the little scrolling ball on the top of the mouse, you can zoom in and zoom out. If you don't have a mouse like that, you can also click here for zoom, and that will give you this sort of, you can also zoom in and zoom out through that. The mouse does make it a lot easier, so I would really, if you don't have one, I would encourage you to have it. So let's create our border. We see that we've left it at 2 inches, so that's good. Let's keep doing that. But before we continue, something that I really, really recommend is that you take care of layers. So everything that you create in Illustrator is going to create a new layer. And so in this way, you see it's telling you you've created a guide in layer 1. This is your main layer. This is your sub-layers. So everything is going to be under one thing. So I'm going to call this, you just double-click to rename it. I'm going to rename this into guide / border. And so you could even go on and to call this, you don't have to, or it's really up to you how you want to, you can call this top guide, the one that, so you'll know which one it is. Let's do the bottom one. Again, we're going to scroll, we're going to move it here to the second box. Again, just to get the ones from this side, you get from this ruler, you drag it all the way to 2 inches, and so on and so forth. Now we're going to zoom in to make sure that we are at the right place. I sort of just dropped them. And so now you see that this one is, not exactly 2 inches. So I can just press on it, select it, and with my arrow keys, I can move it to my left. And remember, it's snapping to grid. That's why it's being able to jump around like that. If you didn't have that, it would have just moved randomly. If you click on the bottom one, and sometimes it's hard to see, especially if you have a white background, if you have a grid, you can just simply, if you know it's there, just simply drag your arrow and it'll find it. If you don't know exactly where it is, you just, okay, there it is. And then again, this is 2 above, so I'm just going to go down twice. And again, with this one, this one's pretty close. No, it's actually right on spot. So now we got that. And again, it's created all these guides on our layers. If you don't know exactly how it looks, just going to select it all. And now we see that inside it's created a sort of, it's created this border for us. So it's telling us we're not going to put any images on the inside. So now we created that guide. Something that I do recommend is that you lock it, because we don't want to move those. We don't want to really touch those. Those already are good. Now we're going to create a new layer. And this new layer, we're going to call it photographs. So this is going to be photograph or images. And so basically what we're saying is that everything, all our images are going to be there. So now let's start placing our images, the fun stuff. You're going to click here in File, and you're placing an image. So you're going to click Place. You're going to look for your folder. In this case, I already have it open. And I'm going to start placing my image. So let's say, let's choose this one. I already had it selected. There's 2 ways that you can place an image. I recommend this one, the one I'm about to show you. It's, again, you sort of zoom in where you want it, and then you kind of draw the shape or the scale of it. So you kind of already have an idea, okay, I want it this big. This is going to be my main picture, so I want it too big, and it's going to place it there. Another option, let me do it again, it's again if we select this image, I don't know if it's going to be the same one. Yeah, it's right here. And if you just press, it's going to leave it basically at the original size. So that's another option, but if you want to if you already know that the size you have is the right one, but as I mentioned, most of the cases, you'll be changing this scale. So there's a shortcut to place an image. It's Control-Shift-P. So if you ever see me placing images, I'm not going to File and Place. I'm doing that. So Shift Control-P on a PC, and on a Mac is Command-Shift-P. Or you just look at there, and it'll tell you what is the command. So again, I'm going to create this sort of image. All right, I want it there. I'm going to click on Properties because you want to do something with the image. One of the things that you want to know to do or not to do is to embed. So for now, we're going to leave it not embedded. I'm going to show you as to why we're going to do that. But it's important that you embed all your images before you finalize your project. So the way you're going to, but for now, we're going to leave it as is. And also here you can see you can crop and has different functions. So for now, the idea of embedding, I do want to mention that embedding is, as you can see, has this X. It's not creating the full image. It's basically creating a link. So this is like a hyperlink. It's basically telling you it's on your document folder so and so. If for some reason the document gets deleted, this poster will be also the images in this poster will be deleted. That's why, and also if for some reason I tell you, email me your Illustrator file, and you didn't embed the images, you will basically be sending me an empty canvas, an empty artboard, because the images are not really there. They're just linked to your computer, and since you're not sending me your folders, you're just a file, I won't be able to see anything. So remember to always embed. For now, we're going to leave it like this. I'll explain later why. So again, this looks okay. We got our first image, and then we're going to keep going, adding different images. Let's go to this one, and again, I kind of wanted to include it here. And let's do one last image, which would be, a vertical one. So we go like that. Okay, so now it looks, so we have something going on. So now let's start fixing this a bit more. So the way, again, we said we're going to keep to 2 inches, so we can sort of come and move it to 2 inches, make sure that's aligned, and you can tell it's almost aligned here, but not exactly. What about on this side? This one is aligned. And then you have to figure out how much spacing you want to give between images. You can sort of be, give them very close, very separate. Let's start by putting this one next to, here. Again, 2 inches apart. You got your 10 inches on the top. So again, if you want to be precise, just make sure that everything is there. And as you can tell, this one is also good. It's not cutting into anything. And this is also good. So now we've got, sort of this one. Now let's just fix this one. And we're going to move it here. So now we see that it's also aligned there. But as you can tell, it's not here is good. And here it's good. But now let's make sure that here you can see that it has more space on this side versus on, it's more space here versus here. So here we have almost 2 inches. So if we move it here, we'll have actually 2 inches. And here we have, an inch and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically, you're going to go on to, trying to, using the grid to be able to find just the middle. And so, okay, so I'm going to make sure that that's exactly the middle. One way that you can do it is sort of measuring this. That's one way. There's other versions that I can show you later of how to really align it. But for now, let's keep it a bit simple. You count it. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we got it exactly both of them. So it looks good. We got there 12 inches. And one way that if you got your top and you're like, I want to do something similar on the bottom because you can kind of keep it symmetrical, you can select them all. And as you can tell, I'm selecting them all. And if you press Alt, it's going to change your arrow into this double shape. I don't know if you can tell, there you go. And what this means is whatever you select, by pressing Alt and dragging, you're creating a copy of it. So now I've created a copy, and so I'm going to put it right below. And so I'm kind of, I would want to give it the same space, which is about 14 of these squares, but might not have the space, so let's do it just 1 inch for now. And so as you can tell, everything is aligned, and I still have my inch border. But let's move it a little bit higher. Let's just give them three of these so I can have more space in the bottom. Let's just do it even less. Let's just give them 3 of these boxes, and that could be fine. And then now we've got this, and the reason why I was telling you about linking and not linking is that now you can click on this image and we go to links. Remember, if you don't have that, you can open it here. And by this image, it's showing you. And so you can click on this little 3 lines, and you're going to click relink. So this is basically saying this image is going to change by whatever you click. So if you click on this, if you click there and you're like, okay, and this will work very good if your image they're identical before you bring it to Illustrator. If not, it will not work. So let's say these 2 images are identical, and so I select it, so you can tell it just simply changed the image, but it did not change any of the cropping. So let's say with this one, I unfortunately don't have another square one, so that wouldn't work, but just imagine I did the same thing and I have this sort of square one, but I do have another vertical one. So again, I go here, relink, and I'm going to change it for whichever vertical. They're the same. So, and there you are. It changes everything into this vertical one. So that's one way that you can do that. To do that, if you don't want to relink and stuff like that, you can still bring image by image, but it'll just be a little bit more time consuming, but it could be fine. And so then now, remember we go back to layers, and here in photograph, you're going to see that it says linked image. So that's, again, now that if you finish, we don't want it to be linked, we want it to be embedded. That's when now you go to properties, and you're going to click on one by one, you're just going to click embed. Sorry, I moved it. Embed, 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 embed. So now we have the full size image. And don't worry, if you still want to relink, you can still do that. You select it, link, and now you just click. It removed a lot of the settings. We just click relink, and it's gonna unembed. So that's still a possibility that you can still do that. So now we've created that. Now let's just add our information. So you're gonna click text, and here in text you're gonna be adding. Remember, we still have this border that we want to keep inside. So let's keep it inside that border. So the first thing that it's going to create some random text, so you can just ignore that. So let's give it a title. I want you to think of a title that is sort of interesting, but at the same time that, describes the building. So if you're doing a high school, if you're doing a church, if you're doing a house, it could be Quinta Mazatlan, it could be Old Chapel, Saint Mary's, something like that. It could be, for this case, since it's more about one building, just think about the name of that building that's descriptive. If it's more about taking pictures at a park, you can or you can take pictures about going to the fair. It could be Carnival Day or things like that. So it depends on what you're showing, but if you're just showing one building, I do recommend that the title relates to that. So let's call this the White House. So let's call this the White House, the White Meadow House. So as you can tell, it's a little small. So we're gonna go here to properties. Properties is gonna be your best friend. And we're going to change the point size, so it's just the size. And it says on the description that it's a 72 font. So let's keep it at 72. And you're going to look for a font that's not too distracting, but at the same time that kind of goes with what you're doing. So there's different fonts. I could talk a lot about fonts. I used to try to memorize. I used to play a game to see what the fonts were on newspapers and stuff. So on magazines. So I think fonts is really, really important. It says so much of the artwork itself. You can have an amazing thing, but the font can sort of mess it up. So. Still looking for a font that kind of looks good. Let's go with this one. Let's go with this one. All right. So it's a 72, or depending on the font, on the typeface, it could change to maybe being a bigger font. So let's focus on it for now. Another thing is, so now we got to know where we want to place it. So I'm going to drag it all the way to the end. So I'm going to say it's from 2 inches to 2 inches. And again, I still have 2 inches here. So there you are. So I've created the whole box. And now I'm going to center it. So what that means is that I know for sure that this is at the center from here to here. If this box if I don't put my box all the way here and I put it here, the center changes. So make sure you do that. Make sure you do that. Or you can also, now you can align it all the way to that, or you can align it there, or you can justify it. you can do everything whatever you think is better for you. Then you will also have to, sort of know, put it, then you play around with, do you want it right at the middle? Where do you want it? And so things like that, which I will show you right now how to place it right at the middle. So now we have that information, but now we're going to have to put our name and stuff like that. And so again, type, and then you put your type and all of that. So here I have an example that I already finished just to save a little bit of time. Here I actually did it different. Actually, I think I preferred this one over this one. As you can tell, the images are a bit here a bit too spaced out, so it kind of looks a little weird, honestly. Here I made it a bit bigger, but by making it bigger, hopefully you can notice that I've changed this. Instead of 2 inches, I couldn't keep it at 1 inch. I had to, 2 inches, sorry, I had to move it to 1. And another thing that happened in here is that because of the dimensions, I couldn't keep it at 1 inch all the way. I actually went to 1 inch and, three grid squares, and so on and so forth. Also, but I kept it consistent to the sides, but also in the bottom, I did keep it consistent to 1 inch. So I made it 1 inch, 1 inch, and then 1 inch and 3 here. On the sides here, I also made it 3. And what I liked about this one, it was 3 all around. So I really, really wanted to make sure that it was proportional all around. So I prefer, honestly, if you're going to go with one, I prefer that the grids are similar, the spacing is similar in the between. Versus this one, I think, since I'm just doing it right now in front of you, I don't have enough, I don't want to spend too much time, but yeah, I don't really think it's good that here is very small and then here is big. I would, again, as I mentioned, I would probably bring it a little bit here. I think that looks, I'm not really, I would need to get closer, but I think that looks a lot better than the previous thing, even though it's creating a lot more space. But I think that now I'm starting to like it now. I would just make sure that all of these spaces are equal. But yeah, even if it does have a lot of space, I think I kind of like this one now better, now that it's all in the middle. Yeah, because it gives it a lot more borders. So now I like this one. Okay, but I guess you understand that the fact that it creating a more uniform spacing between the images and from here and here, that's what I was kind of looking for. And so, but here you can see that I've added the name, and I've sort of placed it at the center again, and I placed it here. I have my 1 inch grid and my 1 inch border, and I placed it right at almost at the edge, which I can sort of, since this is a box, it's sort of there. And then I've put my name. Or this is what you need to put. You need to put the name of the city, so in this case, McAllen, Texas. Your name, architecture, photography, fall 2020, and then lecture, my name, department. And then you're also going to be placing a QR code. So again, let me just do the QR code. Again, it's the same way as placing an image. You place the QR code, you place it, let's say, there. Let's just make it big. But if you see it there, if you double click and it goes to properties, it's going to tell you the height or the value and width and height. So if you go to the instructions and it says it needs to be 1 by 1. And so by doing that, you for sure will make sure that it's at 1 by 1. And so now let's put that again following the grid. We're going to keep it, I'm noticing the one at the top is a little bit off, but fix that, and so there you are. And you're gonna, again, also provide the name, the f-stop, the shutter speed, and the ISO, and I left 1 inch, or one grid box, way. And so I haven't done that for the others, but one way that I recommend you do it is create one. And then remember I told you click Alt and these little arrows come and you now copied it. And so you can now just move it around. If you press Shift, you're going to be able to move it to wherever, it's going to stay aligned to the previous one. So Shift. And you're going to make sure that it's, again, stays whatever format you create. If you wanted the right corner, the middle, or whatever, you follow that. And again, you do that, and so on and so forth. You do that again for the other one. And so it didn't, so you have to press Shift, the Alt, and then leave it before you are able to press Shift. So yeah, you move it and so on, just so you can have that and then change the settings of each individually. Again, and then if you look into my layers, you'll see that you have the images and you have the guide, sort of separate. I would really recommend you still have your text on another separate one, which I will show you right now. This is another version that I did. This one, again, sort of keeping the, a bit more simple, so less images because they were portraits. I wanted to have more. So again, very, very similar idea as to what we did before. Just put in the names and everything. Here you see, again, the name. This now has more space, and you see these things. One way that you can start seeing how your work looks, and you click on View, Presentation Mode, and this will show you how your thing will look. So remember, this is your border. And it's fine that it's big because also sometimes you will have frames, and the frames sometimes come inside a little bit, a couple of, inches or less or whatever. But sometimes you don't, sometimes you do. But it's good to have that sort of space. And again, if we look at the other one, View, Presentation Mode, you see how it looks clean, it looks, organized, and it also really, really is able to highlight your images. And same thing with this one, View, Presentation Mode. Again, you can see which one you kind of like the best. This one, again, has a bit more border. It's a bit wider here. So I always like to have the border symmetrical or the same all around. I think that really helps with the design. Another thing is, as you can tell, this image has a little bit of white here. It kind of makes it look like the image is, this white is kind of cutting into it. So those are the times that you start looking if your image should be black, your background, your artboard should be dark color or white color. Those are the times where, you want to be careful with that. But in this case, I'm going to leave it white, but just the things that you want to be careful with. Another thing that I wanted to really, really make reference that I didn't make focus too much on is that whenever you want to move an image, so let's say in the beginning, I was aligning it and I still wanted to, if you move an image, you see that it's going to change it. So I'm not going to move it just so that it can fit, and I'm going to scale it down, and it's really going to mess up my image. So the way you really, when you shape and scale down images is you press Shift, and by pressing Shift, you're going to click on this arrow, whichever arrow you want to scale it down to, and it's going to scale proportionally. Some versions of Adobe, you don't need to do this, so make sure that if you're, some Adobe's already, it just comes, pressing Shift actually changes this function, so make sure just whichever of the, if pressing Shift or not pressing Shift is going to be the version that you want. So there you are. Do that, and whenever you want to move things around, make sure you shift or don't shift to keep things proportional. So it won't change your image. Another thing, and the last thing that I'll mention, is this one. As you can tell, for this one I did do the text is actually on its own layers, and I have a text for the grid lines. I have a text for the images, and this one I think it's just an extra layer that I don't really need, so I'm just going to delete that. I'm just going to delete that. So the reason why it's good to have the grid lines is if you just want to take off the grid lines, you want to take off the guides, you want to take off the images, you want to take off the text. And that's something that I wanted to show you. In this one, I actually did something different. And I won't spend too much time on it, but basically what I did is I created this grid lines, what I'm calling grid lines, and it's actually boxes. So I've created here, if you go here and here, rectangle tool, you can create a box. And so when you go to properties, again, properties becomes your best friend. You select it, you can change the color to any color. So let's go change it to this color, orange. And so what I did, I basically said, I want it to be 1 inch, right? And so I'm gonna create this. And so I've created these boxes, and then I've created, so now I have my 1 inch box. And so with my pressing Alt, I'm able to copy it. I've rotated exactly that now it's vertical, and then I've created this. And then again, I want to create it here, and I've created that 1 inch box. And then I created my, and then also wanted that to be at the bottom. So I'm like, okay, let's create a 1 inch at the bottom. And I've wanted 2 inches on the side. So I'm gonna create this one, move it here, and I'm gonna put it at 2 inches. And sort of here, and then drag it all the way to the bottom. And then I'm gonna copy this because I want it on this side too. Sorry. So now I'm gonna copy, and then it's gonna create down here. And now I need one for the top, right? So let's do that. We rotate it, and then you rotate it, and you put it on the top, and there you are. And then we need it to extend all the way, okay? Now I'm gonna drag it to the bottom. And then I've created my grid. So this way, and then this one, I'm gonna keep it still 1 inch, not changing the thing. And so now, as you can tell, it's created this sort of grid dimensions. And if I zoom in, I can do this, so people to fit properly. And the way this one works is that, let me just delete everything that I did, because I've already done it, but you cannot really tell because it's in white. But the way it works is that if I go here to grid, to layer, sorry, and I click this toggle visibility so you don't see my white boxes, this is how the images actually look like. So it does not look good. But once I turn it on, it looks good, because what the white boxes are doing are simply, in a way, masking or covering the thing. So my picture itself is actually bigger, but my white boxes, I'm saying everything, since I'm saying the picture is going to be under these white boxes. So here, this will not work if your images are above your grid. So if I move this above the grid lines, you can see it doesn't work. So if you're going to use this possibility or this method, make sure your images are below your grid lines. And the way this works, it's again, you have all these sort of grid lines, which is basically just shapes. And now let's say we have this image. I'm going to select this image, this one. I can move it with arrows. I'm going to be moving, and it's not going to be seen because it's under the white. So now I can play around as to what I want to be seen. So I'm like, no, I kind of like this more. Yeah, no, I like this better. Okay, and then so on. You go with this one, and you can also sort of just make sure that if it's going to go to the other one, make sure it is it's still below the other one. Yeah, you have to move things around to make sure that this one's under. Okay. Yeah, so you just have to make sure that this one becomes above the other, which I don't know why. Okay. So yeah, I think because the other image doesn't go, yeah. So yeah, basically you would just have to make sure where you want to go, and that's a little bit easier, honestly, from the two approaches. This is a bit easier because you're just gonna hide everything under these white boxes. but you can use both versions as to which. But again, this one, it's a bit more clean, or not clean, but more precise, because this way I'm for sure making this 1 inch and this one 1 inch and so on and so forth. And these images will never go over above that box. So I'm for sure keeping that grid really straight. And I've created my text above the boxes. So if I was to put it behind it, it disappears. So make sure the things you want above your boxes is above. So again, kind of made it in the corner. This one I put since I had more space in the bottom, I've kind of made this font a bit bigger. You can see I made it into 85. So you can sort of play with 70, 72, 85. Not too big either, but and then again, your information and your QR code. So it is a lot of info, but hopefully that helped into creating your poster and to creating all of that info. And then once you're done, you're just simply gonna file, save as, and you're gonna make sure you save your Adobe file. So that's one thing that you always need to save, because you can lose it. So after you save your Adobe file, also save it as a PDF. So you're just gonna click Save as PDF, and you're gonna call it your first name, initial, and then everything that that it says, the way it says on Blackboard. And then you're gonna save it. It's gonna ask you what size. You're gonna save as the default should be fine, and you're gonna save PDF. It's gonna save. But then to submit to me, you're gonna save one more time. Let's save the poster. Gonna call it something else. You can just say 2. I don't think it can. Yeah. And then just make sure for this one, just smallest file size is fine. And save PDF. Saving this document, but preserve Illustrator didn't come uncheck. Maybe it's disabled. Let me try it back in. Okay. And then save PDF. Whenever you saved it with your first version, if you open it, and you see that the quality is not too good, you can also get the high quality, and that should be fine too. So so that'll be it, and then you're just gonna be able to submit. So hopefully this helps. Any questions, let me know.